the tangled webs they weave. And the webs go back to forever. So I've been watching these videos when I've had time from the National Institute of Medicine, Health, old videos from the 40s, 50s, 60s. So there was one I watched recently on venereal disease, a venereal disease rapid treatment center in 1944. Here's just a description of it from the institute. The film shows the medical treatment, social, recreational, and occupational activities and rehabilitation of female inhabitants of a venereal disease rapid treatment center. Shots include venereal disease treatment center for women, former CC, and in parentheses it says former CCC camp. Girls arriving at a small county jail, physical exam. This is everything they show. Physical exam with vaginal smear, inoculation, interview to determine sexual contacts, intravenous drip treatment, occupational therapy, both physical and mental, recreational activities, and farewell and departure. And it shows, so they feel fine. They didn't know they were sick. They didn't know they were sick till they went to their doctor, and their doctor did a test, and the test said, you're sick. So now you got to go off to the camp, get in the bus. And they bus them to the camp or bus them to the treatment center. And then they're there for weeks, months. And while they're there, they train them for manual labor. That's what the video showed. Because at the beginning of it, it shows the women arriving at the reception patient area and getting checked in all together. And it says the receptionist was a former patient. It says that in the video, and it's so unprofessional at the beginning. And I get it's 1944, but come on, they can be. This is supposed to be the experts, right? So they say as the women are walking in, some women are good, some women are bad, some women have. I mean, it's really demeaning, and that's because the roots matter. I said in another video, the roots of something matter, because if the roots were in soil of something wicked, then that's just going to keep being handed down to the next. It doesn't mean everybody in it is bad. Everybody's been told this is what the experts say, and yet at the very roots of it, it came from something that wasn't good, which is why we've been lied to so much. So they have a video on venereal disease, and then they have one also on syphilis, gonorrhea, and it's all of these things that are very, like testing and stuff. That's like, I've always wondered what, the gynae exams women have to have. They're very humiliating. I mean, I can't imagine any woman would not agree with that. Or the breast exam. Or like if they have to, for gonorrhea, they have a video about, and this, a lot of this is, I guess, in medical school that they show these videos for doctors to see, but still, for the gonorrhea, they shows the patients remove their clothing and the physicians take samples from the end of the penis and then make a smear on a slide. And it's strange that it's all these things that did we ever really need it to begin with? You have to wonder, because if you do believe in the Bible, then in the Bible people lived to like 200, 400 years old. So why back then did they live longer, but not now? And why is it that except for maybe leprosy and a couple other things that were spiritual illnesses, then where did all this other stuff come from? Maybe from the roots of it. The roots where it started, which seems to always lead back to Egypt and Greece. And I did another video on all the Greek gods, like cancer. Cancer, the word came from Hippocrates, because he said that the cancer looked like a crab. And the first documented cases of cancer were 1500 BC in Egypt. Interesting, Egypt. I mean, Egypt, I think isn't that where the Israelites were, that Moses was taking them out of because they were enslaved there? I just think it's, connect the dots. Here's a picture. This would be like the snapshot of the video for a venereal disease rapid treatment center, and just strange. See, they're like, the women are all lined up. They certainly don't look sick, but they're all lined up like they're an army. This is who you're told the experts are. So, but here, there's more. So in 1940, there was also a video on this from the National Library of Archive Medicine, and it was called Choose to Live in 1940, and it's the Surgeon General talking about cancer. And the Surgeon General, who was appointed by Roosevelt back then, was named Dr. Thomas Perrin. Well, he's tied to the Rockefeller Foundation. So were many of the Surgeon Generals. Not only that, he was tied to Tuskegee and Guatemala's syphilis studies. I'm going to say studies instead of the other. Anybody who knows about Tuskegee knows that was a study, and I'm using study in place of what it was, because those people were lied to. That all came out later. But Tuskegee went on from 1932 to 1972. So it was going on while this guy, and he was part of it, he was heading it up, and he was the Surgeon General of the United States. So why is it, even if you want to say to yourself, well, back then that's all they knew to do, well, why do they keep doing the same thing then? Like, you'd think that they'd learn something from it, unless their whole point is just to probe and prod and on everybody. The video on syphilis, gonorrhea, it's always this way to take people away, take them to the camp. And yet why, if you're really experts, why are you doing the same thing over and over again? Like, why haven't you discovered any? I mean, if cancer is from 1500 BC, that's when it was first discovered, then again, I'm going to say, then the science has failed miserably, because they haven't been able to come up with anything. But again, it's known that there is a cure for cancer. They won't release it, like so many things that I'm sure they don't release. And it all ties back to Rockefeller. So interestingly enough, Dr. Thomas Paine, Dr. Perrin's leadership role in international health affairs dated back to the 1930s with the Rockefeller Foundation and the Pan American Health Organization. Perrin chaired the International Health Conference, where the World Health Organization draft constitution was adopted in 1946 and led to subsequent U.S. delegations. And so this guy who was heading up like the venereal, all this stuff, because he was the Surgeon General, it all goes to money. It's all about money. Dr. Perrin's syphilis control campaign was in full swing by fall 1936. The Title VI funds supported efforts to identify and treat syphilis, and the National Venereal Disease Control Act of 1938 made funds available for rapid treatment centers, our tax dollars. His work against syphilis is tainted, because this is from Wikipedia, is tainted by the Tuskegee, and it is tainted, actually. I'm surprised Wikipedia put that in there. Is tainted by the Tuskegee syphilis study and Guatemala syphilis experiments. All this for funding, and Dr. Perrin became active in New Deal politics in New York and entered national politics as well. In 1934, his supervisor, now President of the United States, Roosevelt, appointed him to Committee on Economic Security. So, he was U.S. Surgeon General, Committee on Economic Security, which during his time there, he drafted the Social Security Act of 1935. And all of them are tied to, every U.S. Surgeon General is somehow tied to, a foundation that's tied to Rockefeller. So it's dirty, it's corrupt, and I don't think it's ever been. And it's so interesting reading this stuff too, because this again about Dr. Pran. His primary task was chairing a special health commission whose recommendations in 1932 provided a framework to bolster county health departments in the face of needs in the Great Depression. Isn't it funny? Back then they had the Great Depression, now it's the Great Reset. So it's dirty. It's dirty. And if you keep going back far enough, it explains why we have more problems, because they're only experts at creating problems. And you have to wonder, was any of it ever necessary? Do you really need to go and have a health exam every year? I don't think that's a stretch. I think that's a good question. I don't know that they haven't created all this to begin with, because the roots are rooted in something wicked. As I said, the tangled web or roots they weave is twisted.